Hi, this is Jay Hummel. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Excited to have a good friend of mine and industry veteran today, Phil Buchanan, chairman of Cannon Financial Institute. Phil, thanks for being on the show.
Jay, my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Hey, why don't you tell the viewers just briefly a little bit about you and your journey as well as what you're up to at Cannon?
Okay. Been in the business a little over, over 3 decades now. Started my career in Atlanta, Georgia, back in the late 1980s with an organization that was known as Trust Company of Georgia. Today it's part of the Truist organization. But the main body of work that I've been focused on over the last 2.5 decades has been in the consultancy and education business of people in the financial advisory space. So our firm, Cannon Financial Institute, is focused on wealth management professionals, really, on their professional development. And we're agnostic as to channels. So we work in the trust and family office space. We work in the registered investment advisory space, the broker-dealer space, the independents, the regionals, any advisory firm that's working with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients. They are our clients. That plus the regulators, which is a slightly different part of our business, another part of the forest, but that's a big part of what we do as well.
Well, and you and I met, and just so the viewers, if you ever think about wanting to work with somebody who's great at training advisors, I actually met Phil in Canton, and we wrote a book called The Essential Advisor back in 2015, and we wanted to build, when I was in Investment, we wanted to build a training program out of it, and I had no idea how to train advisors. And so got introduced to Phil, and Phil and his team created a great training program that they're still doing today in partnership with Investnet called The Essential Advisor. So there's nobody better in the business at training advisors than Phil and his team.
Well, thank you for that.
That was a fun ride.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to talk about with you today, Phil, is you've really been, and you and I have always talked about it. I believe eyeballs and ears matter as it relates to building brand. And you've done a great job of building what I would say is a content business, that leads to Canon ending up with clients and prospects. And I get that question a lot. And Paul Hertner, who produces our podcast, people ask us all the time. I mean, honestly, the deep dive, we made this up. I turned the computer on and I just talked to people. There was no strategy to it. You've had a great strategy. You have the Monday Morning Mojo, which happens on Monday. You have the Cannon Curve that I think comes out once a month, where you interview industry leaders. How do you think about wanting to spend the time to build content like that and to build those brands?
Well, you would be giving me much too much credit if you said that we had some grand strategy on either side of it. Much like you listen to what your clients are talking about, what they're challenged with, and you try to identify a solution or a path forward. I'll tackle them in order. Monday Morning Mojo came first, and that is a monthly podcast, a weekly podcast that has run uninterrupted since the start of the year of 2012. You can, 52 weeks a year, you can run the math and know what's going on there. That actually was not a grand strategy. Back in 2011, I actually had a client that we were doing some work for, and she said, what I'd really like you to do is to consider addressing my team for 10 minutes every Monday morning, just to inspire them, to get them engaged for the week. And I told her, I said, that's absolutely impossible. She said, well, you could just record something and we could play it at our meeting. And so I came back and I talked to our director of IT at the time, and I said, hey, I've got this request. And he said, oh, what she's looking for is a podcast. And Jay, I literally looked him eyeball to eyeball and asked the question, what's a podcast? And remember, this is 2011. It wasn't as popular as it is today. And that was actually the genesis that got us thinking about it. We did some research on it. I tested it with some other clients, and they were like, we would love something like that. So that was the inception there. between 2012 and 2016, I took a little sabbatical from the world of consulting and training, and went and partnered with a good friend and fellow board member to help expand some of the work that he was doing in the trust and registered investment advisory space. And when that project was wrapping up, and I was going to make a move back into the consulting business, I took the time to interview about 20 different leaders in the industry to talk about the challenges, the issues, what was going on in the wealth industry as they saw it. I'd been an operator for 4 years and a little more myopically focused on our own efforts versus those broadly happening in the industry. And one theme that kept coming up, and actually it was a good friend of both of ours that made this comment, Trey Ruck. He said,
Sure.
you know, the business schools today put out a lot of great managers, but the industry is devoid of a lot of great leaders. And I remember that statement, and I was like, you know, you're absolutely right. And so that was the genesis behind the Cannon Curve. Books are written about the Jamie Dimons of the world, right? Books are written about the big, well-known leaders, but there are a lot of great leaders that are out there in the wealth space that a book's not going to be written about them. They're not going to write their own book, but they've got some fantastic messages to share. And so the Cannon Curve is just that. It's great leaders with great stories and how they think about things. You've been a guest on that show twice, sharing some perspectives that you've gleaned over your career. And it's those micro lessons. You and I talked about this in a personal conversation a couple of weeks back. A little word given at the right time, an example of what's right and what's ethical and what's the appropriate strategy. Just hearing somebody else having thought through it, maybe differently than the way you're thinking through it, or maybe in concert with the way you're thinking through it, sometimes will give you just that extra nudge to go the way that you need to go. So again, I'd like to tell you it was this grand vision that, you know, we're going to have this great strategic deal on Monday Morning Mojo and the Cannon Curve and Cannon Connect and First Friday Feedback. But really it's more listening to what the clients are asking for and trying to find a pathway to deliver it.
That's fantastic. As you and I talked a few weeks ago, that's what entrepreneurship is. You don't always get it right, but you just got to keep moving. And execution in a lot of ways is more important than strategy. So on that topic, you know, we get the question a lot, and you just laid it out. There wasn't necessarily a grand strategy, but there's a lot of people who I believe in the wealth management advisory space that would love to think about building the kind of content that you do. What's a couple pieces of advice that you would give to them on starting, and how do they do it?
You and I actually had a conversation before you launched this podcast, and you were doing a tremendous level of research. And I remember telling you at the time that the most important thing is to start. You can pivot like crazy once you get started, but one of the things, and I watch this in a lot of businesses. People will research and strategize and re-research and re-strategize, and they're trying to get things perfect before they launch. Well, Bob Rotella wrote a great book years ago, and it was about the game of golf, but it's really about life. But his book is entitled "Golf is Not a Game of Perfect," and I would say that life is not a game of perfect. Business is not a game of perfect, and those individuals that launch, that get going and use the getting going as a large part of their testing phase, I actually think that's the most important piece. I've had numerous people come to me and say, how do you get started with a podcast? And I was like, well, you got to have content, and then you got to record it, and then you got to promote it and get people to listen to it. And if people aren't listening, adjust your topics, adjust your formats. But this whole idea that it's a difficult thing to do, it's really not. It's a way of delivering, again, that micro content to people in small chunks that connect them with your thought process or your vision or your community.
How do you think about return on investment I get that question all the time, right? I mean, I know you spend a lot of time on your media properties. I'm sure you spend a decent amount of hard dollars on what you're doing because it takes money to produce these things, and you do a lot of them. How do you think about return on investment?
Again, this is going to deflate the balloon right there, but I actually have never thought about it. I've never calculated it because the purpose of the podcast from inception into now has never been about generating a return. For example, none of our podcasts have paid advertisements. None of them, we don't shout out and request Patreon contributions and things like that. We do these as what I refer to it as a service to our client base. I'm going to tell you the greatest return that I've had on these podcasts is when I meet somebody for the first time, but they're not meeting me for the first time because they've met me or they've met Canon through our podcast. And it's funny sometimes, but they will fall into conversation. Hey, how's your daughter? And daughter one, daughter two, what's going on with this? And I literally am meeting this person for the first time, but they've gotten to know our business. They've gotten to know my family through that. And those are very special, especially when they tell you that something that was said on a podcast had made the difference in the way they thought about life, the way they thought about the industry, how they had the ability to impact others. That's a return that you can't place dollars on. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. Your MBA friends are going to tell you that I'm nuts on that, and they're probably right. But that's how I think about it.
We do the same thing on the deep dive. Frankly, we just enjoy doing it. And frankly, I enjoy doing it because I get to talk to people like you and I get to bring great guests on, and it gives us an excuse to catch up for 15 to 20 minutes. And if one person listens or 50,000 listen, if we help people, that's the point of the show. So
you're hitting on something really important right there. It is about helping people, but I'm guessing that you feel the same way about this as I do. I have learned more doing these podcasts that I can apply to my own personal life and the way that I think about business challenges and issues than really any other source of inspiration or information that I've been able to glean over the last 20 years. And it's the willingness of people just to kind of share their story, the way that they're thinking about things. It's that whole circle of reciprocity, right? You give and you get back a lot more than you get.
No, I agree 100%. Well, Phil, I know the viewers are going to hear you and they're going to want to find you. How if somebody wants to find you, is LinkedIn the best way? Go to Canon's website, your email. How do people want to work with you?
We're pretty easy across all the platforms. And I do something a lot of folks don't do. I've got a mobile phone just like anybody else. 706-540-6000. Which is a relatively easy number. If I'm not plugged into your phone, though, when the number shows up, you absolutely swear it's a robocall, and you wind up screening the call. So it's not a great number for that. But shoot a text if anybody wants to chat about anything. Happy to do it. And then of course Canon, that's CANNON financial.com, and I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and all the other social platforms that are out there.
Well, that's awesome, Phil. I know you're really busy. I really appreciate you taking the time, and hope you consider coming back again in the future.
Well, Jay, you and I have been friends for a long time, and the impact that you and the way that you think about business has been profound on the way that I think about business. And so I'm both humbled and appreciative that you had me, and I'll join you anytime, anywhere, my friend.
That sounds good. Well, let's get on the golf course soon.
I like it.
All right, man. Well, thanks for watching today. We'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.